What if I told you that NASCAR did something this year that they haven't done in decades? Something that opened the sport to a whole new wave of fans, and something that we might never see again because they just announced that it will not be returning for next year's schedule. I'm talking about NASCAR in Mexico City. That weekend will not be returning from 2026 as seen on dailydownforce.com. And it's a shame really, because the Mexico race was one of the biggest moments that NASCAR has had in really decades. It really made the sport feel big and grandeur and important. It gave NASCAR a sense of gravitas that we really haven't seen in a couple of years. And why I say this, you might ask? Well, if you look at some videos from the fan interaction in Mexico, they were swarming Todd Gilliland like he was Dwayne Johnson. No disrespect to Todd Gilliland, but if we look at a top 10 most popular NASCAR drivers list, I don't think Todd Gilliland is going to be there. But unfortunately, that race is not happening in 2026. NASCAR will not be going south of the border next year. And again, it's just a shame. And in my opinion, I think it's a mistake. International presence is important, not just in NASCAR, but in all sports. I mean, that's why you see the NBA, the NFL, the NHL. They all have an international presence now. And NASCAR needs to be the same way. And while we don't know, there's rumors that Montreal is still in the works. There's rumors that Mexico could return in 2027. But those are all rumors. Those aren't stated in stone. So in my opinion, going away from Mexico is a big mistake for NASCAR. That's what we're going to dive into in today's video. We're going to talk about why they left Mexico. We're going to talk about how Mexico was good for the sport and how Mexico could, in theory, still fit into the 2026 schedule if they really try to keep it going. So without any further ado, let's begin. All right, let's just get the elephant out of the room, and that is, why isn't NASCAR returning to Mexico in 2026? It's not that they don't want to. I'm sure if NASCAR wanted to, they would love to return to Mexico City in 2026 because, like I said, it made the sport feel big, grandeur. It was one of the biggest races of the season. So why would they get rid of it? Well, it's not like they really had a choice per se. So some of you guys don't know, the FIFA World Cup is going to be hosted in Mexico City in 2026. It's actually one of multiple venues for the FIFA World Cup, but that is one of the venues in 2026. And the stadium that is going to be hosting the FIFA World Cup, I'm going to read it right here, is Barnot Stadium, or Estadio Azteca. You know, if you want to know it in Spanish. And I'm pretty sure if I mispronounce both of those names, I'm sorry. So what does this have to do with NASCAR going to Mexico City? Well, if you look up where the stadium for the FIFA World Cup is compared to Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, they're only separated by about 32 minutes, half an hour. That's not a lot of distance between where the FIFA World Cup is going to be played and where NASCAR races in Mexico City. And I know some of you guys are probably thinking, oh, it's just soccer. It's not that big of a deal. NASCAR should take over, right? Well, not exactly. You see, guys, the FIFA World Cup is a huge deal. Not a big deal, a huge deal. Over 1 billion people watch the FIFA World Cup every time it comes around every 4 years. Just look at the numbers from 2022 and I believe 2020 and etc., etc. It is a huge deal. The reason I say 2020 is because of the pandemic, so, seasons got mixed up. But anyway, when you are trying to go up against the FIFA World Cup, NASCAR can barely keep up with the NFL nowadays. Now try to catch up to the FIFA World Cup. That is a battle that I don't care if you're NASCAR, the NFL, I don't care if you're the presidential election. That is a battle you are not winning. And the logistical nightmare, if it was a nightmare with NASCAR during year 1, imagine how bad it's going to be in year 2 when the FIFA World Cup comes to the same city. It is going to be, frankly, a disaster. Now, you guys might think, oh, why don't they just do it for different seasons? Or, why don't NASCAR go to Mexico City early in the year and not in the summer when the FIFA World Cup is supposed to be? Guys, hosting a FIFA World Cup is a huge task that takes months, if not years, to prepare. I mean, guys, countries are bidding, years in advance just to have a venue for the FIFA World Cup. So let me tell you something. The fact that Mexico City won one of those biddings to get a spot in the FIFA World Cup as a venue, they've been preparing for this for years So imagine trying to go into their neck of the woods, the FIFA World Cup's neck of the woods, might I add, and try to compete with that, with the logistics, with setup, with everything. It's going to be nothing short of a disaster. So while I'm not personally a soccer guy and I would much rather have a NASCAR race than the FIFA World Cup in Mexico, I understand why they had to at least take it off the table for the time being, because if they tried doing that in 2026, it would be nothing short of a disaster. So yes, while I acknowledge that going to Mexico City in 2026 is trying to compete, if you will, with the FIFA World Cup would be nothing short of disaster for NASCAR. However, I still wish we would have gone back to Mexico City because, man, it just made the sport feel big. I know I've said that a lot in this episode, but think about it. How many times do we get as NASCAR fans to have the sport feel as big and grandeur as something like the NFL? We don't get that a lot nowadays. I mean, think about it. What's the discourse on social media? Oh, the ratings are down. Ticket sales are down. No one's interested in NASCAR anymore. That's all we hear from people outside the sport, even most fans from inside the sport. We just hear nothing but negativity about the sport. And yes, while we have heard negativity during the Mexico City weekend, some valid, a lot of it not valid, just us being there was huge. Again, look at the reaction from when Todd Gilliland was signing autographs. He was being swarmed like he was an A-list movie star, like he was Tom Cruise or Marlon Brando from back in the day. Todd Gilliland, again, no disrespect to Todd Gilliland, but he's not a top 10 most popular driver in the sport right now. And having someone like SVG, again, international presence, international driver, international venue, just elevated that for me, in my opinion. To have such a world-class driver when, honestly, a world-class race in NASCAR going to Mexico was huge. And the rain, it added some intrigue. You know, he had a couple spins and wrecks here and there, but he also had strategy as well. They got the full force as to what NASCAR is, minus the ovals, but the Mexican fans got what they paid for. And I'm not even talking about the Xfinity race when Daniel Suarez won the Xfinity race starting from the back. That was honestly a bigger deal than SVG winning the Cup race. The fact that Suarez, Mexico's pride and joy, Mexico's representation in NASCAR, won in the place that he has won 3 times at before, albeit in the oval configuration, but he still won there before. That was a huge deal for the sport, and that couldn't have been made possible without NASCAR having a presence in Mexico City. I really want to emphasize how big this made NASCAR feel. NASCAR doesn't really have an international presence. Yes, he got SVG, he's from New Zealand, but people remember him more for supercars and the fact that he's so good at road courses rather than where he's from. And he got Daniel Suarez, but he hasn't done that well in the Cup Series. He just lost his ride at Trackhouse. People are saying he should go back to the Xfinity Series, essentially get demoted. So the international presence that NASCAR is trying to get, at least with its drivers, just isn't really there. So they had an opportunity to take that international presence, to grab it by the neck, and in my opinion, I think they did that. While the logistics was a nightmare, should have we been going from the Northeast or should we been coming from Michigan all the way down to Mexico City and then go all the way to Pocono? And no, we shouldn't have. NASCAR should have scheduled where Mexico is a lot better, in my opinion. But just the event itself was huge. It was incredible. And it really felt good to see just these new wave of fans. And honestly, Mexico has been wanting a NASCAR date for a long time. Look at the Xfinity races from way back in the day. That sold the crowd out. So if Xfinity races from multiple years ago can sell out in Mexico, why can't a Cup race do that? I don't know exactly what the numbers were in terms of tickets and everything for Hermano Rodriguez, but my point still stands. And the thing that sucks is, as of now, we don't have an international presence. Montreal might be in the works. There's a rumor we could go back to Mexico City in 2027, which I hope we do. But as of now, there is no international presence for NASCAR. It's back to the United States, which there's nothing wrong with that. It is NASCAR, primarily a American sport, like 99% an American sport, but at the same time, You need that international presence. You need to tap into that demographic if you want the sport to grow. I know there's a lot of NASCAR fans out there that just want to stick to the Southeast. They want 12 races at Charlotte Motor Speedway. They don't understand that the N in NASCAR stands for national. So when they get mad that we go to Portland, they just look silly. But that international presence is extremely important. Why do you think the NFL is going international? Why do you think the NBA or the NHL have been national for the longest time? I mean, college football is going to Germany. College football is going to Germany. If a collegiate series can be international, NASCAR has no excuse not to be international. And Mexico was an opportunity to do that, and it just sucks that we're not doing that for now in 2026 and beyond. So if I'm clamoring for Mexico City so bad, where would it fit in the schedule for 2026? We don't have the full 2026 schedule as of yet. We got pieces like Daytona 500, Homestead Finale, San Diego Street Course, all that stuff, and now Chicagoland. But we don't have all the pieces to the puzzle as of yet. And by the way, because I do have to mention it, would I rather have Hermano Rodriguez or Chicagoland? I'm taking Mexico 10 times out of 10. While Chicagoland has, in theory, better racing than Mexico, in terms of getting a new market, getting new fans, expanding the sport, it does none of that compared to Hermano Rodriguez. Don't believe me? Look at how those stands looked in 2019 and in years past before it got removed. I know it got removed mostly due to COVID, but I mean, let's be honest here, guys. The market did not want Chicagoland. While fans always clamor for Chicagoland and they clamor for a lot of things, typically they don't put their money where their mouth is. Just look at Bristol Spring, for example. But I digress. So let's see where Mexico, if they were to bring it back for 2026, where could it go on the schedule? And for me, unfortunately, I'm sorry guys, I have to look at the tracks that have 2 dates. So the tracks that have 2 dates on the schedule, I have it on my screen right here, and I'll put it on the screen as well, are Daytona, Atlanta, Las Vegas, Bristol, Martinsville, Kansas, Phoenix, Darlington, Charlotte. Yes, they have 2 dates, even though one is at the Oval, one is at the Roval, and Talladega. So that is 10 tracks that have multiple dates, or 20 out of the 36 races on the schedule. So, in my opinion, if we're going to take out a date to bring in Mexico City, it's got to come from one of these tracks, guys. I mean, my opinion, I have a hot take where that is, I don't think any track on the schedule should have multiple dates. That includes Daytona, that includes Talladega, but that's a discussion for another video. So, if we are going to get rid of a date, it has to come from one of these 10. So, where would it come from? Which track would have to sacrifice a date in order to bring in Mexico City? Well, I'll just go through all of them really quickly here. Daytona, well, I just mentioned my take before. I don't think any track should have one date. It's Daytona. They fill out the stands in both races. You have the regular season finale, and of course the Daytona 500. You're not going to touch that. Atlanta, you're not touching that either. They just got a new date, especially with this new super speedway type of racing. I've been saying for multiple years that the second Atlanta day needs to be the 4th of July weekend. The fact that it isn't the 4th of July weekend makes absolutely no sense to me. However, that means that Atlanta needs to keep its 2 dates. Las Vegas. You can talk me into Las Vegas losing a date, especially because, if we're talking scheduling wise, you could go from Las Vegas to Mexico City, and I think that would be a lot better logistically for the industry as opposed to going from Michigan to Mexico. So Las Vegas is someone I would put on the list to lose a date. Another one I would put on to lose a date is Bristol. And I know people are saying, we just got Bristol Concrete back. Well, we had one good race due to a, honestly, fluke of a tire situation. And then the last one, Kyle Larson made it a snoozer. Well, not Larson, more the next gen made it a snoozer. But let's just say Bristol's return to the spring hasn't been kind. And of course, the attendance hasn't been great. Again, fans don't like to put their money where their mouth is. Martinsville, you're not going to touch that. It's in the playoffs. It's in the spring. You're not touching that. Kansas, I'm tempted to say Kansas, but the racing there has been very, very good. So while attendance has been fairly solid as well, can't get rid of Kansas for both dates. Phoenix is interesting. While the racing has been awful, let's be frank here, they find a way to sell out. Phoenix is like Formula One. The product is awful, but they still manage to sell out week in and week out. It makes absolutely no sense to me, but they manage to do it. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Phoenix keeps both of its dates. Darlington. We'll get to Darlington in a moment. Charlotte, Oval and Roval. It's in NASCAR country. It's early in NASCAR's backyard. You're not getting rid of a Charlotte day. And Talladega. You're not getting rid of Talladega. They would literally crucify everybody if they tried going to get rid of Talladega. So that leaves us with Las Vegas and Darlington. I know I mentioned Bristol, but because I want a balance of short tracks and road courses on the schedule, I am going to keep the second Bristol race, or I guess the first Bristol race. And the reason, again, is because we need a balance of every type of track. Short tracks, road courses, intermediates, plate racing, you name it. We need a balance. So even though the Bristol Spring Race hasn't been the greatest thing for NASCAR, we need to keep it in order to have that balance. So that leaves Las Vegas and Darlington. Now, Las Vegas has had some pretty good racing. So has Darlington, but Las Vegas especially. And it's been home to a lot of pretty cool moments. The side-by-side battles between whether it was Larson and Bell or Larson and Reddick, or whether it was Josh Berry getting his first win earlier this season. There's been a lot of moments at Las Vegas that warrant it has a second date on the schedule. While I don't hate the idea of Las Vegas having 2 dates, I would prefer it had 1. But there is a reason why I singled out Darlington. And it's one specific reason. And that's the Southern 500. You see, guys, in my opinion, if you're going to have a crown jewel, unless you're the Daytona 500, if you're going to have a crown jewel, I don't think that you should have multiple dates at a venue. Because I think it takes away from the prestige. I know people don't like the Charlotte Roval nowadays, but honestly, I think the Charlotte Roval needs to stay for the betterment of just keeping the prestige of the Coca-Cola 600. I mean, think about it. If you have one opportunity to win at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Oval, and then you miss out on it, the Coca-Cola 600, you could get 90% of that back if you just win the fall race. I know it's not nowhere near as big of a deal as the Coca-Cola 600, but if you only have one shot, one opportunity to win at a track and at a venue, and that track and venue just so happens to be the Crown Jewel event, that elevates it to a whole new level. I mean, I'm sorry, guys, but ever since they announced the Spring Darlington date, especially now that the Spring Darlington date is Throwback Weekend, the Southern 500 has lost a lot of its luster. It just has. It's not like it's Throwback Weekend anymore, so they can't even use the Southern 500, the oldest race on the schedule. They can't use that as Throwback Weekend anymore because of playoff nonsense. So it's just the Southern 500, and a lot of time it gets swept under the rug because it's the playoff opener. So the Southern 500, if anything, it feels less of a crown jewel than the Coke 600, the Daytona 500. Not the Brickyard 400, because that's not really a crown jewel, but go watch my Brickyard video to see what I mean. So, Darlington, they need to lose a date. Having a second date was cool for Darlington, especially because they had 3 in 2020 for the pandemic, and they've had 2 dates ever since, but ever since they've gone to 2 dates, the Southern 500 has lost a lot of luster. Couple that with the playoffs, and it's getting to the point where it's feeling just like another race. And that is something you really don't want to have for a crown jewel. That's what bit the Brickyard 400 the last time, on top of terrible racing. So, of all the tracks that have 2 dates, Darlington has to lose one in my opinion. Go in the spring for Mexico City, and especially because that's around the time during the West Coast Swing anyway. West Coast Swing is in the early spring, so you could have Mexico City either before or after the West Coast Swing. That way the logistics isn't so much of a nightmare. So, what track needs to lose a date in order to bring Mexico City back? For me, the Darlington Spring Race has to go in order to bring Mexico City back on the schedule. But yeah, in conclusion, guys, losing Mexico City sucks. Again, looks like it's going to come back in 2027 with what the rumors are. There's a chance we could still go international with Montreal. Losing Mexico City is still a big blow to the sport. Makes NASCAR lose international presence. Makes it lose a little bit of that gravitas that it had when we went to Mexico City. And it's just, can't really say it's a positive, all things considered. And how would I keep it on the schedule? It's simple. Get rid of the Spring Darlington date and bring it to Mexico City. you keep your international presence, and most importantly as well, you elevate the prestige of the Southern 500 by only going to the track once. You do all that, I think it hits all the notes, and that way Mexico City could stay on the schedule. Hopefully it returns in 2027, but as of now, it just sucks that it won't be back for next year. But what do you guys think? Am I completely off the mark, or am I completely right? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think I'm hitting something? Let me know in the comment section below. While you're at it, guys, please like this video and subscribe to the Daily Downforce YouTube channel. That helps me out a ton. Check out dailydownforce.com for all sorts of great content over there. But thank you guys so much for tuning in as always, and we will see you in the next one.